You're listening to the continuation of Cross-Section of a Human Heart, a memoir of early adulthood, by Abi Wurdeman, read for you by the author. Each story in this book can stand alone, but if you prefer to listen to them in order, you can find links to previous chapters in the description below. Four. That time a young man mistook me for Livestock. I stood in the tiny Manhattan hotel room as my tour mate Nicole, a veteran clubber and NYC resident, looked me over. "Sweetie," she said to me, "you're not wearing those shoes." "Yeah, I am." "You can't. This club has a dress code." "You think these won't make the cut?" "They're flip-flops, Abby." "They're nice flip-flops." Target, $14.99. "Look, decorative stones on the straps. They're more like fancy sandals." "Okay, what sound do they make when you walk?" "Well, they're all I've got. These and my tennis shoes." "That's all you packed?" I couldn't imagine a situation that would require anything other than tennis shoes or flip-flops. "In New York?" "Yes, in New York, where I hit the clubs with my bridgework team in my floral v-neck and stone-studded flip-flops, looking every bit the picture of a Midwestern middle-aged preschool teacher who had touched down at JFK saying, "Woohoo, the Big Apple, time to throw on my fun jeans." My year with bridgework was the year of my nightlife education, especially when it came to the whole physical presentation aspect. I was way behind. For one thing, style and hotness had never been major concerns in my life. My natural beauty falls under the category of pretty from certain angles, and I made peace with it in high school when I cut my hair shorter than Pink's in an effort to learn to love my face. I did not date in those days, but I did learn a valuable lesson. It's totally worth it to have people call you sir for 2 years if self-acceptance lies at the end of it. Because I'm not objectively a natural-born hottie, and I grew up around friends and family who made a much larger fuss about my brain, I never made a very strong connection between my appearance and my personal value. Plus, for whatever reason, my creative impulses didn't extend to beauty. My fashion awareness was always several seasons behind, and I didn't have the patience to explore makeup beyond the 2 or 3 pointers my mom gave me when I inherited her old Merle Norman foundation. In other words, despite her best efforts to put me together for the clubs, Nicole and the rest of my bridgework crew usually had to go dancing with a flip-flopped geek who was pretty sure she looked aces in her sparkly tank top. That all changed the weekend of the Fashionista Challenge, the weekend of my style renaissance. We spent this weekend in Indianapolis, where one of our tour mates shared an apartment with a tall, lanky dude named JT. JT was a loyal friend, an energetic host, and an arrogant, shallow man-child when it came to women. JT was not into me in any personal or romantic sense. He just wanted to have a little sex with me. This usually came up once or twice every time I saw him, sometimes followed by a story about some other chick he wanted to bang. Sometimes he only hinted his interest, sometimes he was more direct, but I always made it clear that the attraction was not mutual. The weekend of the Fashionista Challenge, a few of my fellow bridge workers and I crashed with our tour mate and JT with the intention of hitting the town on Saturday night. On Saturday morning, 3 of the other actors invited me to join them in what they called the Fashionista Challenge. We were given a time limit, 2 hours, a budget, $50, and a theme, classy slutty, naturally, around which to build an entirely new outfit for that night. I crushed it. I got a pair of black strappy heels, white linen capris, and a long, form-fitting black halter top that was cut to reveal the loveliest, classiest cleavage I had ever rocked in my life. I finished the look off with a triple loop strand of black beads around my neck and a pair of dramatic 5-inch black bead earrings to match. I flat ironed my hair and framed it around my face. I even busted out the eyeliner. I was a little giddy over the woman in the mirror. She looked so capable and commanding, not in an I shall rule over men with my cleavage sort of way. She was powerfully self-possessed. She was confident enough for those dramatic earrings, She could walk in those heels. She owned those boobs. The boobs, truth be told, were the best part. I'd spent girlhood sleepovers speculating with my friends about when we might get boobs and how big they'd be. I'd fantasize about having a lovely curved silhouette. But by the time I got boobs, I understood quite clearly that this is a society in which women are only assumed to like their shape because of what it means to men. To like one's own knockers is to be an attention seeker at best, a slut at worst. So to see myself like this, in a one-woman celebration of my cleavage-capable body, it made me feel bold, rebellious. Like, I don't care who you think I am in this classy-ass halter top. Once I was on the dance floor, I got about 10 minutes to enjoy this new sense of self-ownership. About 10 minutes until I felt the wicked sting of a massive hand on my ass. JT, in all his grace, had slapped me. And when I say slapped me, I mean he slapped me like he was sending a horse on back to the ranch. If there had been a slap-o-meter there to measure the intensity, the arrow would have zipped way beyond flirt, swung past discipline, and landed somewhere in the vicinity of "this should make you cry." It was hard and loud and awakened a well of rage in me that I did not know existed. I spun around and nearly collided with my tourmate, JT's roommate. He was already between us, trying to pacify me. "Ignore him, that's just JT. That's just how he is, hon. Take a breath, let it go." He squeezed my shoulder in that condescending way that doesn't work on me now. At 22, however, I didn't know how to match words to my anger. It wasn't something I had a natural gift for anyway, and I had grown up on Earth, where a good solid ass smack is exactly what you should expect if you're going to walk out the door sporting beautiful cleavage. We like to pretend every person is capable of rising above societal influence, but let's be real. The images and ideas that surround us get inside our heads, and regardless of what we know to be true, our culture still shows up in our subconscious, still taints our instincts. This is how a 22-year-old woman ends up small and childlike on the dance floor, knowing she has every right to speak out against being struck hard on the ass by someone who has already heard no from her multiple times, but feeling like it would be overdramatic to claim that a flirtatious slap was somehow a violation. At the end of the night, our little group convened on the club's front patio, waiting for a few stragglers so we could all safely walk home together. By now, my unreasonably cheap fashionista challenge heels were killing me, and, as I'd learned from a recent trip to the well-lit bathroom, my feet were actually bruised and swollen. So I decided to sit, aiming for the chair I knew was behind me. I came crashing down on the patio floor, my lower back slamming against the hardwood, my legs splayed out in front of me. I heard JT's loud laughter, joined by awkward chuckling from my friends. I looked up to see that spank-happy Sasquatch standing over me, holding the chair. And once more, there was JT's roommate to make peace, to quiet my instinct to defend my own right to dignity and assure me that repeated ass injury was just a tedious but completely acceptable consequence of being someone JT wanted to sleep with. On the walk home, I limped half a block ahead of the group, partly in a hurry to get out of my shoes, partly disinterested in being around anyone for the moment. I was pissed at JT. I was pissed at my less than supportive friends, but mostly, I was pissed at myself. This cowardly fraud trying to pass herself off as a grown woman in her heels and sleek hair and powerful lady cleavage. It was not okay that I hadn't said one damned word for myself, or that I'd allowed myself to be pacified on the basis that demeaning behavior was just JT. I was small. I was stupid. I was angry. I wasn't alone to ruminate on these thoughts for long. JT caught up to me, asking why I was in such a rush. "My feet hurt," I said. "That's also why I'm limping." "Oh, I hadn't noticed. Why do your feet hurt?" "The shoes. Totally worth it." "It's actually not. My feet are swollen and purple." "Yeah, but your calves look sexy. Women should always wear heels." "I'm telling you, I'm in pain right now." "Push through the pain. You're sexier in heels." That was it. My pain was worth his boner? Somehow, at some point, this douchewagon had decided it was reasonable to behave as though everything I was wearing was for him. He could slap, he could demean, he could instruct, because ultimately, wasn't my body here for him? Wasn't I dressed up for the interest of any and every man whose path I crossed? Isn't that what I was communicating here? Was it? I limped into the bathroom at the end of the night, expecting to resent the weak-willed hussy I saw in the mirror. But I didn't resent her. I couldn't. Her cleavage was too damn magnificent. I liked this dame. I admired her. And I knew her. She was the kind of woman who decided in her formative years to prioritize her own feelings about her beauty over anyone else's by cutting her hair ultra short. She was someone who was not easily fazed by a hotter girl poo-pooing her gem-encrusted flip-flops. And somewhere inside her was the fire of a woman who knew the righteousness of her own anger. That fire was deep and difficult to access, for that is the way when you're 22 and no one has shown you what to do with that kind of indignation. But she'd find the fire one day, because all of us do, and she'd learn how to use it. A Quiet Person's Guide to Fighting Back. Some people were born fighting, with bullhorns in their hands and sharp, snappy retorts preloaded into their mighty, mighty brains. And some of us were born whispering a gentle, "Excuse me, please," on our passage through the birth canal. We always take the temperature of the room before we speak. We lose sleep over forgetting to say thank you. We do not, under any circumstances, RSVP maybe. When I was in my 20s, I was fairly certain that the former category of person was the powerful and courageous one. I longed to be that kind of person, tried to figure out how to be someone who burst through doors of the conference room, dumping my purse on a chair without bothering to ask if anyone was sitting there. Now I know better. Speaking up doesn't always mean with a bullhorn, and power doesn't always require aggression. We are all capable of inspiring and challenging one another, of leaving the world a little better than we found it, and of standing up for ourselves. And while we should step outside our comfort zones, we also have to remember that we get more accomplished by working to our natural talents than by pretending to be somebody else. So here are a few suggestions for anyone who has the heart of a rebel and the manners of a Victorian grandmother. 1. Be the clear eyes for the natural-born fighters. Their job is to keep us from getting complacent. Our job is to help them communicate with people they're mad at. When your badass feminist roommate shows you her op-ed on consent, you be the person who helps her edit out phrases like entitled man whores so the piece has a shot at registering with the entitled man whores she needs to reach. 2. Write. If you're someone who's not great at immediate in-your-face confrontation, it's probably because you're cautious with words. Using the right words is important to you because what you believe is important to you, and you don't want your meaning to get lost because of an unedited vocabulary. If your mouth resisted a battle your heart wanted to fight, think if there's a way to make the points you would have made in writing, whether it's through a letter or a published work. Just don't publish anything designed primarily to be a passive-aggressive dig at a specific person. 3. Stage your protests over coffee. Quiet people are often good at things like empathy and one-on-one conversations. Guess what that means? It means we're also good at getting people to look at an issue from a new perspective. We listen, we speak gently, we are safe conversationalists for people who disagree with us. We make change stealthily in cafes, while other people are out on the streets, creating a ruckus. 4. Be a number. Seriously. Protests, organizations, petitions, any coordinated effort to improve the world depends on people showing up, signing their name, or expressing their support. Whether the goal is to be taken seriously or secure funding, your mere presence counts for a lot. I mean, look for ways to do more than that, but also know that even the quiet person in the back of the room makes a difference just by being there. 5. Help the fighters strategize. Most of the time, we are quiet because we are observing. We have a lot of thoughts about what works and what doesn't, what people respond to and what makes them shut down, and which battles run the risk of invalidating the entire mission. Your voice box may malfunction in the moment of confrontation, but meetings are when it's time to start flapping those gums because you see what others might gloss over. 6. Love. Love the people you fight and love the people you fight alongside. That's the only way we ever get anywhere.
Hi, I'm Abi Wurdeman, author of Cross Section of a Human Heart and the person you've been listening to for the last 15 minutes or so. I am releasing a story from the book in audio every Sunday on YouTube, plus some bonus stories and author commentary. So if you want to make sure you catch the next one, subscribe below. And if you are just now joining us and you want to hear some of the previous chapters, you'll also find those linked in the description below. For today, I am, as you can see, still not a very interesting background, still in the process of moving into my new office. There is a huge mess down here that you can't see. Just picture a disaster in your mind, and that's what's there. But it's going to come together eventually, gradually. We have friends coming to visit soon, so it's going to be a necessity here in the next couple weeks anyway, so that'll motivate me. Anyway, so as a follow-up for today's story, I have a couple things I wanted to talk about. The first one is that I would like to confess that I made some edits in the beginning of the story, and I've been doing that here and there as I record these stories. Every now and then, I run into something that I want to change, not change the facts of the story, but my delivery of it a lot of times, just because my perception of something has changed, or I feel like it might, it's slightly harmful in a way that I didn't realize a few years ago, just little stuff like that. But in this story, it was that beginning part where I talk about like my relationship with beauty as a young woman. Because when I read over it now at 41, I was like, oh, that's a little bit like not like other girlsy, and that's not the tone I wanted to strike. I will say, not at the time that I wrote this, but definitely like in my teenage years, probably my early 20s, I definitely took a little pride in being the kind of woman who, doesn't spend that much time and like all of her money on beauty, and just is kind of above it all, and like values herself for who she truly is and all that kind of stuff. Here's the thing. And now that I'm 41, I look back, I can recognize that I did like that about myself, that, that this primary thing that I valued wasn't beauty, but I also want to acknowledge that there were things that made that easier for me than they may have been for other people. One is just that it wasn't a fun hobby for me. Like I mean, I see women now who are just really into fashion and into makeup, and all that stuff is an art form, and they do incredible, beautiful things with it, and they're having a lot of fun, and it's very clearly just for them. And I don't think I fully appreciated that until probably about my mid-20s. The other thing too is I look back, now that I'm a middle-aged woman, looking back on old pictures of myself, and I'm like, oh, I was cute. I wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but I was somebody's cup of tea, including mine most of the time. And that helps a lot. And it especially helps a lot when I wasn't so attractive that I heard about it all the time. I only heard about it every now and then from select people, but it wasn't something where it was like regularly celebrated. So I didn't feel that pressure. I didn't feel that sense of identity. I didn't feel like if I had a day where I wasn't attractive, then the thing that everyone liked best about me was just gone. And I think that acknowledging these things now is important for recognizing that I did do the thing of cutting my hair, of making a very genuine effort to like myself for who I was. But I also had a lot of things that made that process easier. And I wanted to talk about it because the other thing that I realized was that as I was writing that section talking about what my own relationship to my appearance was, I got really frustrated realizing there is no okay way to talk about this. There's no acceptable way for a woman to discuss her own appearance. If she talks about the things she doesn't like, then her self-esteem is too low. She doesn't have enough self-respect. She's focusing on the wrong things. She's too simple, whatever. If she acknowledges the things that she likes about her appearance, if she does think that she's beautiful, then she's conceited and no one wants to hear about that. A woman's beauty is like a woman's sexuality in that everyone else gets to discuss it. Everybody else gets to have an opinion, gets to weigh in, gets to tell her how she's supposed to feel about it. But no one wants her to have an opinion. No one wants to hear her feelings about it. She's not supposed to weigh in on the value or appearance or presence of her own body. I don't like that. So I wanted to acknowledge how hard it was to rewrite that section because I got stuck for a moment in how do I say this in a way that's not going to annoy everybody? And the answer is there's no way to not annoy everybody. So I'm going to risk another layer of annoyance by also adding on the reason I think that I was also a little more sensitive to the way that I phrased this whole section when I wrote it originally is the fact that now that I am middle-aged, now that I'm 41, I'm going through the same process I went through in high school of learning how to love and embrace the way I look because things are changing. And I didn't think that was going to matter when I was young. I thought, I was someone who was like, aging is so lovely. Older women are so beautiful. I love their wrinkled hands and their wise faces. But when you're starting to age like that, or at least in my case, I don't look at the things that are changing and being like, oh, the wisdom of my years. I'm being like, oh God, I'm so dry. My skin is so dry. Stuff is softening and sagging and disappearing where I don't want it disappearing and appearing where I don't want it appearing. It takes a second to adapt and it takes a second to, what am I trying to say? I don't feel as good in the moment that I did when I was 34 being like, oh, I'm so comfortable in my skin. And I think I'll get there the same way I did before. I think it's a process of reframing, of learning to embrace my age, embrace what's changing, and also embrace the larger picture of who I am, the larger picture of what it means to be 41, the things I know, the things I'm capable of. It's just that I didn't know that I was going to have that feeling again of somewhat regularly thinking, oh no, am I not pretty? So I wanted to acknowledge that that's a recurring battle for me because I want it to be okay if it's a recurring battle for someone else. And I want it to be okay for us to go through all phases of the process of being like, well, I live in a world where even if the feedback I've gotten has not been that it's very important that I am pretty, the feedback that I get is that the world that I live in, the message is that it's very important for a woman to be pretty. And we can't just magically shut down the fear that we're not living up to that. We just have to continually learn how to grow past it or through it, or I don't know what metaphor we use there, but anyway. So that's the one thing I wanted to say. The other thing was I wanted to add to this list of suggestions for introverts who have a fight to fight that I have at the end of the story, because a lot of introverts have a fight to fight right now. If you are like me and you're not good at getting very loud and in people's faces, even at a time when there is an administration making choices that make you feel real fighty. I have a few more suggestions that I can add to the list. The first one is I wanted to recommend, this is less about fighting administration and more about being a person in the world where more people around you are at risk, and potentially you are too. And that is that I took this amazing bystander intervention training workshop online back in 2020. This one was geared towards the rise in violence against Asian Americans, but it was put on by Right to Be and Asian Americans Advancing Justice. Right to Be does a lot of these workshops for all different categories, different issues. But it was a phenomenal workshop. I actually took two. I took one for in-person and one for online bystander intervention training. But what was so fantastic about this workshop is that it puts a lot of focus on giving you a bunch of different tools and helping you determine which response aligns with who you are, what you're realistically going to be able to do when you are in a situation where someone is being harassed or potentially under threat of violence. There's a lot of emphasis on keeping yourself safe, on de-escalating. I think that's a big one that's hard for introverts, especially because we get this idea that standing up for someone who's being harassed means like getting up in someone's face and being ready for a fight and all that kind of stuff. But so it puts us in sort of this black and white thinking, right? Of we either have to be ready for something big and loud and active, or we can't do anything at all. And that's, I think, why we end up sort of standing back and cowering in a corner or something, which doesn't make us feel good. It doesn't help the situation. So this training is great because it gives you a lot of options so that you can go into a situation like that already knowing this is who I'm going to be if this issue arises. This is how I'm going to show up. So I'll put a link to the current workshops below if you want to check those out. Highly recommend. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the thing that I know how painful it is when you're an introvert and you're looking up, what do I do to help with this situation? Or you're clicking on a list that someone posted about, things that you can do to fight back against what Trump is doing, against what Elon is doing, against legislation, all this kind of stuff. And always the article will say that the number one most important thing you can do is call your representative. And oh my God, who wants to do that? And they're like, I signed up for 5calls.org. I have the app, the 5calls app. You can do it through the app. You can do it, just go to the website, however you like to connect with your technology. But and the whole thing with that, people will be like, oh, just go through a few phone calls. It takes you 5 minutes a day. It does not take 5 minutes a day. It takes like 15 minutes at least, because I have to spend 10 minutes first rehearsing the script so that it sounds natural, even though nobody needs it to sound natural. They just need it. They just need to know that I called. They just need me to have called on this issue. Not to mention, you're almost never talking to a person anyway. You're getting voicemail. You're just recording yourself saying a thing. But it's hard. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. I was trying to go for a while on the logic of like, well, I live in a democratic, I live in California. All my reps are blue. I'm just going to call them and tell them to do what they're already doing. But yeah, I need to call them and tell them to do what they're already doing. I need to make sure as a constituent that I am putting as much pressure on them as they are getting from the administration and from the Republican colleagues. It's hard to do, and I don't like it. And if you don't like it and you've been avoiding it too, I don't blame you. What I just want to tell you is I want to tell you the thing that's been motivating me, and that is the fact that Trump is coming for all of the channels that I use as an introvert to express myself. All of the options I have for expressing my voice, he's coming after it. This administration is working to make voting harder. They are, they're working to shut down discourse and protests on college campuses and everywhere. They're working to silence people in town halls. Again, not necessarily an introvert area, but you get what I'm saying. And they're coming after journalism. They are trying to make it hard, potentially one day impossible, to print something that isn't in praise of Trump. And if using my actual voice now can help protect these avenues that I use to express myself and to say what I want and to say what I want this country to be and what I want this country to be for the people that I love long into the future, then I'll suck it up and do it. I will do awkward scripted telephone calls with strangers to tell them what I want them to do for me because I hired them. And so did you. So right after I finish this video, that's going to be the first thing I do. I'm going to make my stupid phone calls. And then I'm going to try to make them the next day too, even though I don't want to. And if you want, go ahead and ask me in the comments if I made my phone calls today. And I'll be like, oh, way to hold me accountable, jerk. And then I'll do it and I'll be grateful to you, even though I called you a jerk, which I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. So if you want to join me in that, please do. Again, I'll put the links to my resources for that below. It's super easy. They give you the phone number. They tell you who your rep is. They give you the script. All you have to do is just pretend that you don't hate it for, they say 5 minutes, I say 15. So that's all I have for today. Thank you again for joining me. And I will see you next week for that time my brother and I spent a decade breaking records. All right. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you're into all this. All right. Bye.